For coming to run Woods Hole. We're honored to have you up there, and you are going to have to become bilingual to arrive. It's not Gloucester, it's Gloucester. I can keep going down. All of the most frequent correct phonetic pronunciations that don't actually capture the way we pronounce these cities and towns in Massachusetts. But we thank you so much for all of your great work, your expertise, and your willingness to bring it to our great state and to this incredible international institution, which is Woods Hole. And thank you to Bob Gavosian and to Susan Avery for all of your work over the years. We thank each of you for the contributions which you've made to our knowledge of the oceans and the leadership that you've given. And it's great for me to follow Senator Sullivan from Alaska. My mother is a Sullivan. My mother always said the Sullivans are very intelligent people, which is why they named one to run NOAA. So I think there's a high concentration of people who forebears left Ireland, an island nation surrounded by water, to come here to work on these ocean issues. The Sullivans right now are in the disproportionate number of the power positions dealing with the ocean in the administration and in the United States Senate. And it's my great honor to be here with all of you. As Senator Sullivan said, that Alaska and Massachusetts are the seafood superpowers, although I think he made it singular in terms of his own reference to it. But I will just note that New Bedford is the highest grossing fish port in the United States of America. So I will just say that, and say that when Senator Sullivan and I next year are walking through the seafood show up in Boston, it will be the seafood superpower senators touring together, representing our appreciation for what happens in our nation's ports. So we have also the League of Extraordinary Scientists from Massachusetts today, like Steve Lawrence, the Dean of UMass Dartmouth School of Marine Science and Technology, just down the road from New Bedford. And we are glad to welcome all of you here today and to the United States and we Capitol, and we thank you so much for all of your work. And you heard David Cash on the last panel. He was an all-star in Governor Deval Patrick's administration, and will also do great things in his new role at UMass Boston. Another record we hold just off the coast of Massachusetts is far less positive than New Bedford's seafood success. The Gulf of Maine sea surface temperature is warming faster than anywhere in the world. The effects of climate change are being felt now. Just like all politics is local, all climate change is ultimately local as well. Familiar cold water fish like cod are moving north, shifting the southern boundary of their range, while southern species like black sea bass are appearing in greater numbers off of the coast of Massachusetts. The iconic American cod, which used to be so plentiful, is less so now. And so, yes, 40 years ago, when Magnuson-Stevens was put on the books, and I can understand now why the Senate tries to put their brand on all of these laws. Coming out of the House of Representatives, it was called the Studs-Young law, after the late, great Gary Studs and Don Young, who still serves in the United States House of Representatives from the state of Alaska. So it was done together then on a bipartisan basis, bicameral basis, and I would say a bi-ideological basis, okay? That it had to be viewed that way if that law was going to be put on the books. And now we're faced with a new set of challenges, and we just have to accept them and to do our best to work together, as Senator Sullivan said, in a bipartisan fashion so that we can work on these issues. We don't just face a threat of warming temperatures. New Bedford holds its impressive record because of scallops. Scallops make up 80% of that fisheries landings there. And as the ocean acidifies, it will become harder for scallops to form their shells. Massachusetts' claim as a seafood superpower is under threat, and the villain is climate change. We know it's not just a problem in Massachusetts. Global warming is changing the entire ecosystem of our oceans. We should be deeply concerned about the resiliency of our fisheries and oceans in a rapidly changing world. The oceans are not just an important source of food for millions of people globally, but they provide more than half of the oxygen in the atmosphere. We would not have a habitable planet if not for our oceans. Alongside Massachusetts' strong tradition of fishing is our strong tradition of science. And at the very core of science is observation. In order to truly understand the science and solutions for a resilient ocean, the theme of this year's Ocean Leadership Policy Forum, we must first have the necessary observations in order to properly plan for resilient and sustainable fisheries in a warming world. We need more of the right kinds of observations. A perfect example is the ongoing global coral reef bleaching, which is already the largest we have ever seen. One of the culprits, our current El Nino, is tied with 1998 for the strongest on record. But how much is climate change influencing this natural climatic phenomenon? With approximately 500 million people globally who depend on reefs as a food source, these questions directly matter to society now. Is this El Nino just an outlier or the beginning of a new normal? We depend on climate models to predict the future, but our climate models still have trouble predicting El Nino. What is unclear is whether the models are missing something or are we missing key ocean observations. We must extend our observation network to the tropical areas of all of our oceans and expand the types of observations too. The biology and the chemistry of the ocean is just as important as the physics. Because what happens in the ocean doesn't stay in the ocean. It has real consequences to people and communities on land. For example, changes in the circulation in the northern Atlantic are causing warmer waters to pile up there. This is contributing to sea level rise among the East Coast states, which is occurring 3 to 4 times faster than the global average. What will the Atlantic circulation look like in a warmer world? Well, this is a big question that we have to answer to protect millions of Americans along the East Coast. And better observations will be essential to finding the answers. When the new normal doesn't look much like the past, continuing our long-term observations are even more important. Ocean resiliency starts with good prediction. Good prediction starts with good understanding, and good understanding cannot occur without good observations. This information is critical to making well-informed policy decisions here in Washington, D.C. I want to work with the scientific community to make sure that the United States has the comprehensive climate and environment observations that we need. My staff, led by Anna Unruh Cohen, Dr. Anna Unruh Cohen, has started to reach out to the ocean science community, but we want to hear from you about what is needed to have a robust observational network that will help us meet the challenges of climate change. So give us any information that you think would be helpful in designing a model for the future. There are many unknowns in this warming world, but as my New England Patriots know, the best defense is a good offense, especially when there's a lot of people who are Patriots deniers. So we have to fight that, because we know that we understood the physics of the deflation of footballs. We rely on science. So we must prepare for a warming world. Better understanding and observations are our offensive line to protect us against any incursions that could harm our nation or planet. We are in an amazing time for oceanography. The future of autonomy is rapidly approaching. Slocum gliders made in my home state can spend weeks in the water. Satellites are continuously taking snapshots of the sea surface. We have a network of Argo floats nearing 4,000, thanks to many of you in this room. But we can and we must do more. The future of our oceans, the resiliency of our oceans, and the future of our planet depends on it. I hear over and over from both managers and fishermen that they need more data, not just to make decisions about fisheries in the future, but to make well-informed decisions about fisheries right now. And we need help from those of you in this room. An example of this kind of help we need is the researchers at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, who are working on a new video system to count cod and improve stock assessment. We must invest in technological innovation and our researchers. New observational platforms require ingenuity, technical know-how, and support. That's why I will continue to fight to make sure that you all have adequate support. Not just year-to-year funding, but looking long-term. There are big existential questions that we as a society are going to have to answer in the coming years. What will this world look like for future generations? What can we do to ensure healthy oceans for them? With a lot of hard work from the scientific community over many decades, we have started to answer those questions. But increasingly, what is happening in the ocean far from shore has consequences back on land. Not knowing what is happening out there is no longer an option. And that's why we need to expand our ability to observe the oceans and fill the gaps in our knowledge. Because ultimately, as policymakers, the observations in science you do will help us make better informed decisions. From the unknowns in fisheries management to the biggest questions of them all, how are we going to address global warming? We need to equip the scientific community with the best tools that we can. You are the ones who know what is needed. Policymakers need you to continue communicating with us, sharing your science and your observational needs. And while we will face challenges from climate change, and there will be continued debate, the good news is we don't need superpowers to do something about climate change. We already have the power of science on the case. We just have to make sure that we unleash it in time to save this planet from the catastrophic consequences that are inevitable if we continue to ignore all of the data being collected. So we thank all of you for everything that you are doing on this issue. It is my honor as a Sullivan to be part of the team that must work together here as policymakers, but inevitably it will be the collective weight of all of the science that forces the changes that are going to be necessary. Pope Francis came as the descendant, the leader following that great fisherman 2,000 years ago. And he came here to Capitol Hill in September of 2015. And Pope Francis, first of all, is a Jesuit, which was a dangerous decision by the College of Cardinals to name a Jesuit. But he also taught high school chemistry. And here's what he said to the Congress with his sermon on the Hill. He said that the planet is dangerously warming. The science is clear. Secondly, that human beings are the major contributing factor. The science is clear. And that there is a moral responsibility for policymakers in this city to do something about it before it harms the most vulnerable on our planet who cannot protect themselves. And that includes everything that is in the oceans of our planet. So we thank all of you for your scientific and moral leadership on this issue, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you in years ahead. Thank you all so much.